Halloween prank. I've submitted several stories about happenings in my home related to my resident ghosts. The last story was a recent encounter with a perfumed ghost. Last Easter, I wrote how the ghost stacked my shoes in front of the door 2 times, once during the week and the other on Easter evening. Halloween night, I had to work the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift at the ER. But I did get to watch some of the live Ghost Hunter TV show. It was a quiet night, considering that it was Halloween, no trick-or-treaters, and I actually fell asleep for a few hours before I had to go to work. Earlier that day, I won the Halloween costume contest at my job, and I was tired from being up so early in the day. I mentioned the TV show because it seemed like some of my ghostly happenings occur shortly after watching a show on a paranormal subject. Like the ghosts know I'm open for a visit or something, but they do act up at other times too. Work was slow, not busy for a holiday night, and I was tired and anxious to get home and go to bed. Well, when I opened the front door, I was startled for a moment because sitting in the middle of the hallway where my shoes were stacked in a straight line again. Just like Easter, it was done with a different pair of shoes, as the ones it was used to stack had since been thrown away because the soles had a hole in it. I got the chills, and at the same time, I was excited to see the ghost play a Halloween prank. I am writing this at work, but when I get home, I will try to send the picture that I took of the stacked shoes. Another happening, but I don't know if we can blame the ghost. Last week, I was away on a trip with my sister. S stayed home to watch the dogs. All of a sudden, he heard a loud crash and the sound of glass breaking. What it turned out to be was a large heavy mirror that was propped up against the wall in the laundry room. So how did the mirror just fall forward, hit the sink, and crash to the floor? The door was closed, no wind could get in, and the dog was asleep at S's feet. Our question is, how could a big, heavy mirror just tip over and shatter? There was no vibration or wind or any other natural happening that could have pushed it over, and if it slid down to break, why was the glass face down and not right side up? Do you think the ghost was mad that I was away? Glowing eyes on Halloween night. This one isn't super long and may not be very scary to most, but it stuck with me for a long, long time. So, here goes. It was Halloween night, I think 2014, once again in my hometown of Richmond, Kentucky. My cousin, his girlfriend, and myself had been riding around. I went out to get some candy to hand out to trick-or-treaters when they came. We decided to take a shortcut back to his place since we kind of got a late start because we lost track of time. It was around 6:45 p.m. and the sun was going down, which didn't help the fact that the road we took, Old Crutcher Pike, is dark, kinda creepy, and very crooked and narrow already. We turned down the road, turned on the headlights, and headed towards his house, which was about 2 miles away. It seemed to get darker the further down the road we got, probably because there weren't many houses or lights around. I decided to roll the window down. It was particularly warm for October, around 63 degrees. Kentucky weather is crazy like that. So now, with the window down, I'm paying more attention as we pass by what few houses there are. We come across a couple of mobile homes next to one another, one with a carport, and directly across the road was a small, dilapidated shack. Then I saw it, and by the look on my cousin's face and the sudden hurry to get off of that road, he did too. Under the carport, at the back of 2 cars as we drove by, we saw a man in black slacks with a white old-timey shirt and a black vest and cane standing beside a woman with a white lace-lined dress and a bonnet, just standing there staring at the shack with big, glowing eyes that looked like reflectors. We got about 3 football fields away and pulled over. We both looked at each other and said, "Did you see what I saw?" We talked about it and we both agreed we had, so we turned back around and drove back by in the opposite direction and saw nothing when we passed the house. We turned around, left the road, and went back to his house, and ended up eating way too much candy because the kids had already stopped for the night. I believe what we saw was real, and I know he does too. But for anyone who has a logical approach, I can't say that it couldn't have been a setup. But if it was a fake, just to scare people, then moved or something, it was a very, very good one. Also, worth mentioning, the land my cousin lived on and all around there was known for being on Indian burial grounds and really old farmland. Thanks for reading. Any input appreciated and welcomed. All my stories don't have something to do with eyes, just this one and the first one I posted. Queen Mary Halloween Experience. So this happened 2 years ago on Halloween. My mother, stepdad, and I were staying at the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California for their Dark Harbor annual Halloween fest. I am a female and was 18 at the time. For those of you who don't know, the Queen Mary is a pretty well-known reportedly haunted ship and attraction. It's an open all year round and is a hotel now permanently docked in Long Beach. We get down to the Queen Mary in the late afternoon before the Halloween festival starts, and my mom and stepdad realize they've forgotten their costumes at home. My mom was pissed, so they decide to hightail it back home, about an hour and a half away, since my mom is a major Halloween lover, and then come right back. I decide to stay in our hotel room, A116 if I remember correctly. Our room had reports of strange experiences, so being that I was and still am super interested in the paranormal, I decided to conduct my own amateur EVP session on my iPhone and ask basic questions. After a few minutes, I stopped recording and play it back. At around 30 seconds, I had said, "Say something, I'm here to listen." There was a pause of white noise, and then a distinctive whisper that sounded like, "Hey." Now, the walls of the room of the Queen Mary are rather thin. You can hear people talking as they go down the halls, but they have that muffled on the other side of the wall quality. This response on my recording sounded closer in the room and was pretty clear, not to mention an intelligent response to my statement, but just was a whisper, which I doubt you would be able to hear a whisper from the other side of the wall during the day. I was excited and showed my mom and stepdad when they got back. They also heard it and agreed with my thoughts. Then we just go out at night and enjoy the Halloween festivities of mazes and costume contests, then head back into the ship and hotel. At midnight we go out and do what many guests do and explore the ship at night to see if we experience anything paranormal. We walk around many of the floors of the ship, hoping to find the infamous Lady in White or whatnot. We go up to their most haunted room, B340, which is closed down now and cleared out. There's a thin slit in the middle of the door that you can see into the room through, so I peered in, nervously imagining a black figure popping up at me, but I did not see anything. However, I did suddenly begin to feel very lightheaded and uneasy. I stepped away from the door and out into the hall, and suddenly felt fine again. I don't know if that was anything, but thought I'd mention it anyways. Finally, we are back in our room to turn in for the night, and this is where things get really, really creepy. When you first enter the room, it is the master bedroom. To the bed's left is a doorway and a small hallway that leads down to the twin bedroom, where two twin beds are against the wall facing each other, and the bathroom is in the back. Now, I was supposed to sleep in that twin bedroom alone. I had read online before that the reports in our room happened in only the twin bedroom and the bathroom part, so I was like, no way. I chose to sleep in the master bed with my mom and stepdad. I was on the left side of the bed, closest to the hallway to the twin bedroom. My mom was in the middle, my stepdad on the right. Just looking into the twin bedroom gave me the chills. It looked so eerie, so dark, so cold. I slept on my right side, with my back to the twin bedroom the whole time. I could not bring myself to face it at night. At around 3 or so a.m., I started hearing movement in that twin bedroom, just like shuffling and a bump into the dresser. I felt really unsettled and definitely felt as if something was behind me in that hallway moving. You know that sensation where you can't see it, but you can feel something present, occupying the emptiness. My eyes were wide, but I absolutely refused to turn to look in there. I was sure it wasn't someone out in the halls because it sounded literally right behind me, not on the other side of the wall. Also, it was 3 or so in the morning, and if it was someone outside, you would hear their footsteps moving away, but no. This was in one place in the room. It stopped. I dozed a little, but then I shit you not, I heard clear as day this creepy jewelry box music playing in the room, right at my left corner foot of the bed. Then I hear it move around in front of the bed over to the right corner, and then it stopped. But as it was playing, I felt and saw my stepdad sit up. So I say, "Do you hear it?" And he says, "Yeah." And my mom mumbles sleepily, "The music?" And I say, "Yeah." It stopped, and we didn't hear it again. But I stayed awake the rest of the night. In the morning, my stepdad and I recount the jewelry box music excitedly, yet also shakily. My mom, however, does not remember hearing it at all, even though she half awoke and set the music when I asked if my stepdad had heard it. Being that she was half awake, I assumed that she was just simply forgot it. Once again, I do not think it was from our outside or in the hallways because it sounded clear as a bell and literally right at the foot of our bed, moving to the right side of it. It was not muffled, and I did not hear footsteps or talking in the hallway at this time of night. Also, who would be playing jewelry box music that late or even at all? All in all, it was a fun, exciting yet super creepy, the most scared I've been actually, stay at the Queen Mary. So if you like scary or paranormal stuff as much as I do, I encourage you to stay at the Queen Mary. Music in the woods. I've posted this all over Reddit. This has to be the 4th or the 5th time I've done this. I keep looking for somebody that's had similar things happen to them, partially because I like to hear true stories that relate to me, and partly because I want to know if anybody else has had this happen to them, either around where I live or in another location. In my limited experience, people with stories tell them when they see or hear others doing so, keeping in mind that I prefer not to be strung along with fictional stories. I'd still like to hear whatever you have to say. So, to set the scene, it was Halloween night in West Virginia. I was doing this thing called the Boo Fest, where everybody parades up and down the main street in their costumes and gets candy from the owners of the shops that are set up and down the street. It was a pretty cold night, and I was glad that my costume entailed a large amount of faux fur trimmings strapped and belted to various parts of my body under and over large strips of insulation foam. After making a circuit or two around the street and getting a small pouch of candy, I returned to my mother and brother, gave them the candy, and we headed off to our respective cars. While my mother and brother headed back home, I headed towards Harper's Ferry to spend the night at my friend's house. Halfway to the house, my friend texts me to cancel, so I pull off onto the side of the road in the pitch black of night and set the GPS to home, expecting to be back before 11:30. Strangely enough, the GPS decides to take me down the most convoluted path possible. Ordinarily, I wouldn't go down the anus of wherever I was to get to Route 9, but the roads were all paved and looked brand new, So I reasoned that I couldn't be too far down Wrong Turn Road. I'd taken off most of my foam and fur costumes, so I was getting sort of cold. I cranked the heat, which in my family's Toyota van makes quite a loud noise. To drown out the noise of the fans, I turned on the radio. Just a side note, if you like new rock music and live in the area around West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, try listening to 101.5 Bob Rocks. I think they have an app too. I'm not sponsored, just a fan, you know? So I'm tooling around in my car when I turn down this back road that looks to be a sort of straight shot for a couple miles at least. I started down the road at 45 miles per hour, enjoying the late night drive. The only car I saw on that road was leaving it just as I turned onto it. After a short while on that road, that couldn't have been more than just a few minutes, something catches my attention. I'm not sure what it was, other than this really slight tickle I felt at the back of my mind, telling me that something was going on. I stopped whatever I was thinking suddenly and concentrated on what was going on around me. I felt more than I heard the noise at first. It was faint, and I shouldn't have been able to hear it over the sound of the fan and the radio together. I turned off everything, and still I felt only the faintest tingling of a sound tickling at my mind. The sound of the tires on the road and the engine almost suffocated it, seeming like a deafening roaring compared to the tickle. It was unsettling to hear something impossible like that. It got louder. It was now distinguishable as noise against the roaring of the engine. I can't describe to you what it was actually like to hear it, but it sounded like music. I would describe it as a mixture of Calliope music, the sound of a little wind-up music box, all playing a sort of tinkling melody that reminded me of some tune that would be played while someone recites an old nursery rhyme. As I drove farther and farther, the noise slowly got louder. As the noise got louder, the faster I went to escape the noise. The faster I went, the farther I went, and the louder the noise got. You know how it goes. Eventually, it was as loud as if someone was playing the tune in the back seat of the van. I turned on the lights in the van and looked at the GPS. I don't remember how long I left on the road, but I remember feeling like it was too long for the speed and the time I'd been going. Around this time, when it was comparatively loud, I passed the only house I saw on that road. The lights were all on in the house, and the music was loudest there, so they must have been playing it. The house was one of those small one-story houses with a square, mostly open layout, with large clear windows, so I could see through most of the house. Looking back, I'm not sure if it was my imagination or my memory, but the house seemed bare. The walls looked white and unpainted. I saw no furniture, and I saw no people, although somebody would have had to be playing that music. Another thing that struck me was that the whole road was hemmed in by tall pine trees that formed an effective and slightly claustrophobic corridor. The house was the only break in the walls of trees. I floored it past the house and down the last few miles of the road. I came off the road just under a Route 9 overpass. I pulled off to the side and took the chance to text my mother that I'd be home by whenever the GPS told me I would be. I floored it down 9, the tune still echoing in my head.